Knowing what modifications to pick for the engineer's secondary weapons, the Deepcore PGL and the Breech cutter can be difficult. In this video, I'm going to go over the builds you should use. Hi guys, I'm Legionless and this channel is about helping you enjoy your games more. If you want a more enjoyable time in your games, subscribe to the channel and share the video to help someone else enjoy their game more. In this video, I'm going to go over the crowd control build I recommend for the Deepcore PGL, and then the crowd control and single target builds I recommend for the Breech cutter. For the Deepcore PGL, you're really only going to be using it for crowd control, as enemies like oppressors and dreadnoughts have high resistances to explosive damage. These resistances are going to make the Deepcore a less effective option for single target damage when compared to the engineer's primary weapons. The Deepcore PGL's greatest strength is being able to damage a group of enemies at the same time, so by leading into its greatest strength, the Deepcore will be awesome at crowd control. In Tier 1, HE compound is great because it takes the area damage from 110 to 125. In Tier 2, larger payload adds another 20 area damage for a total of 145. The reason for these damage increases is because a Mactera spawn is 135 health, and being able to one-shot a group of Mactera spawn instantly can sometimes mean success or failure in difficult missions with Mactera Plague active. Because Mactera do so much damage, taking them out is a high priority. In Tier 3, Pressure Wave is an easy pick with its plus 500% armor break bonus. Unfortunately, Incendiary Compound just doesn't really do much in that tier. In Tier 4, Nails and Tape increases the radius you do full damage. What this means is that more enemies will take the direct damage from each shot, even if they're farther away from the initial explosion. And finally, in Tier 5, Proximity Trigger is great because you don't need to be as precise when lobbing your grenades at enemies, because they'll activate if they travel near the enemy. Spiky Grenade's extra direct damage is very useful because enemies that wouldn't die by the damage buffs from Tiers 1 and 2 would resist the additional damage from Spiky Grenade, and having each grenade be more successful makes Proximity Trigger more useful. You can tweak this build a little bit in Tier 4 if you want to go with Homebrew Explosive or Concussive Blast, but Nails and Tape will probably be more useful more often. Reducing the area damage too much on the PGL for more ammo would just do a worse job at crowd control, because less enemies will die and they'll be left with a little bit of health. Moving on to the Breech cutter, the two builds I recommend will depend on the missions you're running and situations you're in. For Dreadnought missions and missions with Mactera Plague Warning active, you'll want the single target build. For everything else, the crowd control build will probably be more effective. The single target build has high capacity magazine in Tier 1 for an extra 2 shots in the clip. More in the clip means more damage output in between reloads, which is very useful for Dreadnoughts. In Tier 2, expanded ammo bags is just too good to pass up in my opinion. Each plasma beam from the Breech cutter does 575 damage per second, and condensed plasma only adds 175 beam damage per second. So the extra 8 shots increases the Breech cutter's overall damage output more than the extra damage per second, which is just great for quickly killing Dreadnoughts. In Tier 3, quick deploy makes more sense because the plasma beam will open up almost instantly, which is more useful on single target damage than an increased plasma beam width from loosened node cohesion. In Tier 4, armor breaking is an easy pick because disruptive frequency tuning doesn't make sense to run because dreadnoughts are immune to stuns. Finally, in Tier 5, triple split line makes hitting a group of Mactera spawn easier to kill because they usually group up vertically on top of one another. And with the triple split line, one shot should be able to hit most, if not all of them, and it'll make hitting a dreadnought easier. It doesn't increase the overall damage, but spreads that damage between the 3 lines. With this build, either the Warthog shotgun or the stubby SMG will pair well. Just keep in mind that you'll probably want to focus your primary weapons build for more crowd control, because this Breech cutter focuses more on single target damage. Check out my Warthog and stubby videos if you're not sure what crowd control build to run on them. Moving on to the crowd control build for the Breech cutter. Having each plasma beam do as much damage over as wide of an area as possible is going to be the goal. In Tier 1, prolonged power generation will increase the plasma beam's lifetime. The longer it's traveling, the more enemies it will hit. In Tier 2, loosened node cohesion increases the width of the plasma beam, which will hit more enemies at the same time. If you prefer, you can go expanded ammo bags for the extra max ammo so you can shoot more groups of enemies. For Tier 3, quick deploy will be more useful more often if you went with loosened node cohesion in Tier 2. If you went with the expanded ammo bags in Tier 2, either option will be fine, but I prefer quick deploy in general because the plasma beam will open and begin damaging almost instantly instead of having to wait. Again, in Tier 4, armor breaking is an easy pick, and in Tier 5, plasma trail leaves behind a residual trail of plasma that'll damage enemies that get too close. If, for some reason, you miss or the plasma beam doesn't hit a couple enemies, the plasma trail should be able to damage them when enemies get close to it. For this build, I'd recommend running the single target Warthog shotgun build I recommend in my Warthog video, because you'll have crowd control covered with this breech cutter build. The Deepcore PGL is great at crowd control. Lob a grenade into the middle of a group of enemies and watch them all die. With it, you'll want to probably use a single target damage build on the Warthog or Stubby. When it comes to single target damage, what's important to remember is increasing the total damage the breech cutter outputs. That's why I recommend extra max ammo and more in the magazine with quick deploy and triple split line. For crowd control, making every shot from the breech cutter hit as many targets at once will clear through groups of enemies that could overrun you and your team. Increasing the lifetime, width, and effectiveness of the plasma beam are great ways to make the breech cutter better at crowd control. In a future video, I'll go over the overclocks I recommend for the Deepcore PGL and the breech cutter. If you want to enjoy your games more, subscribe to the channel for more content and share this video with others so they can enjoy their games. Tap your screen to learn how to play your class's role in Deep Rock Galactic. Thanks for watching.